Calabar Airport has been declared unsafe, because you have people farming on the runway side. You have people coming in, the villagers coming in to do whatever they want to do on the runway. So just imagine someone coming into land and a cow or someone is chasing his goat across the runway. That's life. Those are lives at stake. So that's what we're talking about. We don't have to wait for this to happen before the House of Reps see that there's an issue.
Do you think the argument was simplistic in reaching an assessment that the fact that the plane could land and then take off meant that the airport was ready? A number of government officials were quoted as saying when they went to the airport. You think it was as easy as that? It's
not as easy as that, because like everything, the mere fact that we stand up doesn't mean it's just as easy. There's so many veins, there's so many cells in our bodies, every part of our body adds up to working together. I'll just put it as simple as that. But in the airport, as I said earlier, there's what we call airport collaborative decision making. There are lots of players within the airport. It's like a city in itself. So with all those players, you actually have, they had the calibration, yes, so that instruments can come to the airplanes can come to land. But you have other players to ensure that everything is, all the ducks are in the row for them to operate effectively.
Now, knowing that we're just into the third week of fixing the Abuja airport, and the Kaduna airport has been declared unsafe, what measures are we going to take at this point? What do you think the lawmakers should be looking to do? Now, some attention was shed on Minna Airport and how the governor has spent about 60 million, I believe, to put the airport in good shape. And, you know, when we're trying to make a decision on what airport to use, Minna seemed to be favored, but that was not what the government chose. They chose Kaduna. And then the Minna governor also talked about the fact that he was trying to fix the road to Abuja, and it will be ready as soon as possible. Now, I said something earlier about the fact that even after 3 weeks, when Abuja airports will be opened, repairs will continue 18 weeks after. Now, it will happen at night so that, you know, operations can run during the day and all of that. Now, looking at these factors before us, what should be the proper thing to be done?
Well, two things. I see two questions there. The Minna issue. Yes, the Minna is actually closer, but the road had a worse, is actually deteriorated more than Kaduna. And when the Minister of Works was addressing that question at the Senate, said it was cheaper and faster to fix Kaduna Abuja Airport than Minna to Abuja. But what the issue is actually the Minna should actually be developed now that we have that opportunity. Minna should be upgraded so that we have an alternate airport, which we do not really have. Actually, coincidentally or technically, Ilorin is the alternate for Lagos. Back to your God forbid anything happens to Lagos, we have to move to Ilorin.
What state is Ilorin right now?
Well, I wish I could tell you.
Okay. You probably don't have to say anything.
Yeah, but obviously, I don't think it's that ready for that operational readiness and activation and transition to be able to address whatever issues. We don't have to wait for Hajj. We don't have to wait for something, really a state visit for us to upgrade that airport. But you had mentioned one other question, the other part about
what we should be doing right now, Abuja.
About the 18 weeks, about the thereafter after April 19th. Yeah. After April 19th, yes, there will be night upgrades. But my question and my concern is that 18 weeks, are we simulating or are we just upgrading lightings? Are we just upgrading systems? Or are we simulating that operational readiness? Because there are two things, and it's just a very ambiguous on what they're saying we're going to do in this 18 weeks. So what we want to know for us to, because it's still anonymous on where that information came from presidency, I want to really know how much of that 18 weeks would be simulation of the systems, how much of the 18 weeks are we going to have night landings, are the lightings, are the markings, are all the infrastructure going to be functional, or are we just going to start trying the process? Because it's one thing to have that house actually completed or the runway completed. It's now another thing to actually see that it actually does the work it's supposed to do.
All right, that takes us back to Abubakar Amuda-Kannike, who is in Abuja now, the Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Works. The Abuja and the Kaduna airport would bring the question about who knows the state of other airports across Nigeria. I mean, these are very critical airports, with the Kaduna and the Abuja being an international airport, and then being in Abuja, where most of the investors would have interest. Now, first thing, we talked about oversight earlier, and you are very optimistic about the 8th Assembly. Do you see that this brings a good opportunity to look at the state of other airports, to know just what is supposed to be fixed at this time before we are faced with the Kaduna sort of situation or the Abuja sort of situation?
Yeah, thank you very much. I agree totally that there is no better time to have a holistic review of our airports. And when I mean holistic review, beyond trying to put the designated international airports and the key hub for the local movement in perfect, shape, it's also is a good opportunity to fix the backup to the major international airports. It's a good time to look at Ilorin seriously as an alternative to Lagos. It's a good time to make sure that Ilorin is ready to take, a backup, function to Lagos pronto, assuming the situation arises. We must learn from experience. I can tell you that, like I said, the lack of planning in this country is what has brought us to where we are right now. If somebody who had the responsibility of managing that ministry, for instance, had troubleshot a situation, and if you do some troubleshooting and you anticipate a situation that, hey, what if something goes wrong with Abuja Airport? Where are the alternatives? What's the state of Minna Airport? As a people, we must always have a troubleshooting mind. That's the best way you can manage a situation. You don't wait for the situation to happen. So it has happened now between at the Abuja situation. So I agree totally that it's a good time to look at our international airports. It's a good time to look at the alternatives to these designated international airports. And it's a good time to fix these alternatives and make them ready just in case. And sometimes what we can also do is to divert flights at some point in time to test the readiness after doing the necessary fixing and making sure the infrastructure is done. We need to make sure that all Nigerian airports, it's a common problem. It's not, we've had issues of animals running onto the runway, not just in Kaduna. We've had it in other parts of the country. We've had incidences with, near fatal misses of the plane crashing because the boundaries or the perimeter of the airports are not secured. We must look at the perimeter of all our Nigerian airports. We must put, security in place. We must make sure that the fencing is properly done, and we must make sure that the designated, key areas are there. Beyond that, we should also look at these international airports. Beyond looking at the backup airports, we should be thinking about alternate runways. There is no serious international airport that does not have an alternate runway. So we should be thinking as part of our planning to develop and construct alternate runways for these airports. It is very important, and we need to start thinking like that now. As legislators, I can assure you that we will be, when the ministries come, we will be talking to them, and in our oversights, we'll be talking to them, so that when the situation is brought to fore, we can look at, okay, when it comes to issues of appropriation, we can support these ministries, departments, and agencies, and make sure that money is appropriated so that they can do this infrastructure and make sure that Nigerians get better service. Where we are because we never thought that this situation could happen, and we must always, in this case, play the devil's advocate. We must always, I think, it's a key part of management to always troubleshoot. And if you don't troubleshoot and anticipate a problem, you're not preemptive in your planning. You're not ready for situations that you don't wish they happen, but you must be ready just in case they happen. So there's no better time to look at these alternatives than now.
To coin a very notorious maxim, they say no one runs a business as badly as the government when it gets involved. I'll take you up with one on concession, what you think the concessioning of the airport is. And then secondly, the Speaker made a number of recommendations with respect to what should go with the Kaduna airport? I know there are short-term and perhaps long-term issues here. 3 weeks and then I guess everyone's eye is taken out from Kaduna. What are the short-term issues you're looking at, or also the long-term issues? So take you up on these two issues, concessioning and then what to do, recommendations with the Kaduna airport.
Yeah, I agree with you that as a government, we, particularly in Nigeria, I don't think government, there's a common saying, it's very appalling anyway, that government's business is nobody's business. In as much as this doesn't go down well with us, with a lot of people, but that is the reality. And we must always look at why we try to, you know, re-indoctrinate our civil service and our public officers to making sure that government's business is everybody's business. We must also look at, you know, I would say, interventionist strategies. And when I'm talking about interventionist strategies, we need to, for instance, there's nothing wrong with concessioning. It's trying to bring the best practices of the public sector of the private sector into public institutions. And why we do when we invite the concessioning, we need to make a choice. Is it going to be something that we want to do so that we can bring the private sector to reorientate and to reindoctrinate the public sector with a view of the public sector going ahead with the responsibility they are supposed to do in the real sense of it, or are we looking at it as a permanent arrangement? I can tell you that some of the best airports, you know, internationally are given to the private sector to run. And you can see efficiency, you can see profitability. But while we talk about concessioning, we must make sure that concessioning is not used as a means of patronizing, how would I say, you know, sympathizers and patriots. You know, what I think we should be looking at it is why we want to concession. We must take the capacity of the people that is seeking the partnership into focus. We must look at it very seriously. We must do a SWOT of the capacity. We must make sure that they come with a lot of testimonials. They must have done similar operations in other places. Even if they are indigenized companies or company of Nigerians, if they don't have that capacity, they must partner with people who have international capacity and who are tested in the area of concession that are sick. There's nothing wrong with concessioning. But we must do it right. I think the problem that has happened, if you look at concessions that have gone wrong in this country, is because we didn't do it properly, because basic considerations were compromised for whatever reasons. So when you do it properly, it will always bring results. I've seen public institutions that have been concessioned out that are working well in this country, and I've seen those that are not working well. So the difference, in my opinion, is how sincere we are about the issue of concessioning and whether we brought the best company that has the capacity to partner with the government on this concession. On the issues of medium and long-term interventions, I seriously pray that we do not relapse into a situation where after we fix Abuja Airport, everybody just forgets Kaduna Airport. I seriously pray we don't find ourselves in that situation. That, in my opinion, is what is almost normal as Nigerians. But I think at this point in time, when we're talking about change does not only come with what the government is advocating. We all, you know, like we say, change begins with all of us. And I seriously pray that as a people and as a government, we do not forget that we need to fix all our airports, we need to put alternatives in place, and we need to actually have alternate runways to even the airports that are seemingly functional. And we need to continuously review. I saw a clip of the Vice President going to the surprise visit on the Lagos International Airport, and we had some equipment that is basic in airport operation that is not that wasn't functioning. And he asked the question, don't you have engineers there? Why would you leave it for days or weeks for the correction of these faults to be done? We need the people that are at the top of these ministries to really be on top, to really make sure that they are supposed to be the ones that are making these surprise visits, to make sure that MDAs under them are up and doing. They don't go to sleep. So I hope that we see a good change. But as legislators, we'll continue to do our oversight. We'll continue to make sure that, where we see these anomalies or things that are not going right, we will make sure that things are done properly.
Thank you. We'll once again turn our attention to Lagos, as our guest has been waiting patiently and listening to you attentively. I know you have a few responses you want to make, but I want to add a question as well. Now, we talked about the ease of doing business in Nigeria, and we've also talked about the fact that we want the airports at the first point of entry if you travel via that medium into a place. So having to deal with these issues of relocating the airport to someplace else which isn't too conducive, shouldn't that be a driving factor for the government to position Nigeria in a better place, so that when we're talking FDI at this point, it's a lot easier for people who want to come in and do business here? How much do you think we've lost in terms of not just money, but scale and other things, having to deal with this when people come into Nigeria?
Well, interestingly, I'd actually tried to do a white paper on that to see we've lost so much. And obviously, not just from the airlines perspective, because you find all the foreign airlines, again, except Ethiopian, is not using Abuja. You have companies having to move their staff 2 weeks before and then move their staff back. That's all cost. So in numbers and figures, I won't want to mention a number because obviously there are lots of, I have an issue with government running the bus service from Kaduna to Abuja and back and forth. That's extra cost on the government. Government should not be in the business of running transport service for the airport. An airport is supposed to be a commercially driven entity. What government is supposed to have done is to ensure the security, the roads are fixed, and the security on the road is actually guaranteed, rather than providing bus services on that route. They lost that actually to the normal taxi driver. In aviation, we look at the direct, the indirect, and the catalytic impact of aviation on the people. In terms of numbers, we're actually still simulating those numbers, because we are looking at all the airlines. They're still thinking there are thoughts that one or two airlines might come, but I actually don't think so. I don't think so. And what will happen is by the end of the third week or